Alright, here we go. Remember to keep it straight back so people can actually see you, Zach. Okay. Hello everybody, and sorry for the terrible lighting. Welcome back to another video. It's been ages since I've actually posted. I'm Zach, making a video about a director called Zack. I am going to be sort of dissecting and analysing the trailer for Zack Snyder's Justice League. Now, those of you who have followed my, say, channel for the past 2 years at the very least will know that I have posted videos on this and the sort of DC universe as a whole. Personally, I was never really interested and intrigued by superhero comic book movies until I watched Batman v Superman, which I know that is a very divisive movie, and there are a lot of people that really hate that. There are a lot of people that really hate that movie. I personally see the flaws in it, like I can see why a lot of people don't like it, but for me, it's such a unique and interesting take on the characters that I sort of couldn't help but fall in love with it. I watched it a first time, I enjoyed it, I could see the problems, but I enjoyed it. I watched it a second time, and then I did a little bit of research and started reading about the movie and reading into analysis of it. And then I watched the director's cut, the Ultimate Edition, and suddenly something just clicked. And I was like, holy moly, I freaking love this movie. I love the cinematography, I love the music, the acting, the action scenes. And it was the first time a superhero movie ever sort of genuinely spoke to me on a, how do I say it, without sounding too pretentious, an artistic level. Because the Marvel Cinematic Universe, credit to Marvel, they have done wonders in terms of their own cinematic universe. But for all the mistakes that DC made, I love how they've been way more auteur-driven and director-driven, and that's ultimately, for me, the thing about films is I've always tended to steer clear of the, how do you say it, more mainstream types of films. I've never really liked mainstream content like Marvel, because it's fun and it's basically just, it's there to be consumed, to be enjoyed, and then it's harmless entertainment. It's sort of popcorn. It's light, it's fluffy, but there's not really much to it than that. There isn't much merit to it in terms of, like, filmmaking skill. I mean, don't get me wrong, the people who make them are skilled filmmakers, but when I watch a DC movie like The Dark Knight, even at their worst, like Batman and Robin, DC has always been way more interesting and intriguing to me, and Zack Snyder, I am a fan of this guy. Even though his films can be flawed, I enjoy his style. I think he's a very interesting and ambitious filmmaker, even if what he tries to do ultimately doesn't work out. And I have campaigned for the release of the Snyder Cut. I became aware of Justice League when it bombed at the box office, and I was interested about the idea of the Snyder Cut, because I hadn't watched Man of Steel and BVS at the time. But I was interested in hearing that there could have been that there could have been another cut out there, and that fans were campaigning for it. And I would often, for some reason, I don't know why, I would continuously, throughout most of 2018, do research on it. I would continuously research the cut. And I was sort of, in a weird, crazy way, rooting for the people who were, you know, campaigning for it. And then it was when I watched Batman v Superman and Man of Steel did I really start to go, you know what, I could get behind this, you know, considering everything that, you know, happened, you know, with Snyder going through his family tragedy. Obviously, you know, I was definitely like, you know what, it would be cool if this thing could see the light of day, but does it actually exist? And so I made that video that unfortunately got taken down because Warner Brothers and copyright and everything. It was fair use, I promise you, that video was fair use, but ultimately Warner Brothers, being Warner Brothers, took it down. I did a video sort of supporting the release of the Snyder Cut, just to show my support, and it was sort of comparing the footage from the theatrical cut and the footage from the trailers and a lot of the leaks that had come out. But it was 2019 when it was clear that there was really something out there. That was when Snyder started posting screenshots and quotes and storyboards and everything, well, he posted some stuff the previous year, but it was 2019 when we began to see some real evidence that something, even if it was unfinished in terms of visual effects, there was a cut out there. And then November 17th happened, and then it began to look very optimistic. It was around about maybe February or April this year, April I believe, that I got a Twitter account, and I'm going to take it down soon probably, but I got a Twitter account to campaign for the release of it. Then it was announced, and yeah, it's exciting stuff, and I fully support this. I understand that there's a section of the fan base, a very vocal section, unfortunately, that is very toxic. That's just the internet. It can't really be helped. There are plenty of toxic fan bases like Star Wars out there. You know, Star Wars, BTS, PewDiePie. There are plenty of toxic fan bases. But ultimately, I think that while that stuff certainly matters, I feel that the fact that the cast and crew are beginning to get to see their work, all of that work is going to see the light of day. Or, you know, the fact that the cast and crew, though, are getting to see their work put out there and people to see it. The fact that it sounds like what happened behind the scenes. You know what? Bloody hell. How long's this been going on for? However, just the fact that the cast and crew are getting to see their work put out there is really, really great, especially considering it was all never really going to be seen. And also the fact that, you know, a lot of money was raised for suicide prevention in honour of Snyder's daughter, Autumn. Obviously, rest in peace on her part. God, is that the right... Is that how I should frame it? And then there was all the money raised for suicide prevention and, you know, all the campaigns and that kind of thing. And ultimately, I think that at the end of the day, and it's also hopefully going to do wonders for HBO Max in terms of profit and stuff like that. So I think ultimately, while there is certainly a lot of negatives that happened around this whole thing, the drama, the controversy, and the toxicity, I think that the good ultimately will outweigh the bad. Who knows? This is history in the making, for better or worse, but at least we're going to get to see Snyder's. And for all I know, this could be disappointing. I may not like this, but considering I've liked all of Snyder's work in the past, even if it has been flawed, I think it's safe to say I will probably enjoy this. But anyhow, this is just going to be me watching, sort of reacting to, even though I've seen it quite a few times now, and then I will sort of dissect the trailer and let you know what I think of it. And I know that there are quite a few subscribers of mine who are Zack Snyder fans. Please know, because I know that, again, there are a few toxic fans out there, please know that if I do say something that you don't agree with, please just don't be a dick about it, okay? Everybody's allowed opinions. I'm a fan of this guy, I'm a fan of Snyder. I can see the flaws in his work, but I enjoy his work, I support him. I think that what happened to him behind the scenes with Warner Brothers and everything was terrible. That's why I supported him. Also, I like Batman v Superman and Man of Steel. And I find them much more interesting than the majority of other superhero movies out there. Much less mainstream, much more experimental. So just be open-minded, guys. Please don't be toxic. I don't want to have to deal with any BS in the comments. But regardless, I'm going to play the whole thing, sort of react to it because I am recording this on my webcam. I'm going to probably edit little bits out and everything. And let's just see this. Zack Snyder's Justice League. This looks so good on my PC screen, I tell you. This just puts a smile on my face, an absolute smile. Thank you to HBO Max. Thank you to HBO Max and Warner Media and AT&T for doing this. Oh, jeez. This does get me a bit emotional, guys. Oh, jeez. And the song. What a song. Please don't flag this for copyright, guys. This is fair use. I'm critiquing it. I'm talking about it. I'm analysing it. I'm gonna dissect it. I'm not infringing on anybody's copyright here. There's Kirsty Clemens. What a shot of Batman there. Oh, this... Again, I'm gonna talk about this in a minute, but... Brilliant. Oh, this part gets me a bit welled up. Just the music swells, and moments like this, and the music. Oh man, this is a tribute, really. It's a tribute to the people who believed and who fought for this. And again, I'll talk about it in a moment, but the fact that we're getting to see this next year, 4 hours of it, is just mind-boggling to me. That's our Flash. And that's our Justice League. Wonderful. JL, the Snyder Cut.
This guy's probably fought hundreds of thousands of other super beings on the other planets he's destroyed, right? And we have to assume he's won.
I don't care how many demons he's fought and how many hells. He's never fought us. Not us united.
That is going to become an iconic line. It really is. 2021, can't wait. Especially after this absolute shocker of a year, 2020. I haven't really posted any videos this year. This is probably going to be the only one I post, let's be honest, but at this point. But 2020, you know, look, the fact that we might have been getting the Snyder Cut got me through this year, honestly. And the fact that, I mean, even as of now, I'm just going to zoom out here. Come on, come on. It's number 20 on trending. It's at about 6 million views, I believe. I'm pretty sure. 300,000 likes. It's the support and the love is real, guys. It's kind of amazing that we're at this point. There's still detractors, which is fair. Look, I'm not going to say you're wrong for not wanting this to come out. But just know, like, at the end of the day, whether you're all for this or you're all not, at the end of the day, when it comes to the product itself, it's just a movie, ultimately. So, let's talk about this, though. I'm probably going to mute the... Do I want to mute this? I don't know. Maybe not. Okay, so, first things first, we have, again, massive thank you to HBO Max for deciding to release this. And I know, ultimately, they decided to release this because they needed something to draw subscriptions to their platform. It's ultimately all to do with money, but all the same, the interactions that they've had with fans on social media really shows that there is a level of caring there, which is really wonderful. So, Warner Media, AT&T, HBO Max, thank you so much for doing this, and thank you to the new regime at Warner Brothers for just ultimately, yeah, putting this thing out there. Because I know that Warner Brothers was quite hesitant to do this, because let's face it, a lot of the people who, well, not a lot of the people, but there are some people there who were sort of responsible for the theatrical cut of Justice League, and don't want this to be seen. So it's a risk them doing this. And if this is successful, it could have a few ramifications behind the scenes there. Again, I'm not an expert, but this is just what I take away from it. But anyhow, let's begin. Let's take a look at this thing. A Max original. Alright, so we've got the Big Daddy himself, Darkseid, aka Uxas. Uxas, this is essentially... And again, I'm not a comics fan. This is coming from a film buff, somebody who's mostly just done research on the whole thing. But this is supposed to be essentially the Sauron of the DC universe. And the reason why I say the Sauron of the DC universe is because this looks very much like and we know that this was supposed to be a much longer, from what Snyder has revealed online, this was supposed to be a much longer flashback. 20 minutes long, I believe he said. 20 to 14 minutes long. Maybe even more, maybe less. I don't know. But it was a much longer flashback. in which it would basically be an epic battle to save the Earth, kind of like Lord of the Rings, and it looks very much like Lord of the Rings. And in many ways, I kind of see Darkseid as being like Sauron. I mean, he's got the staff and everything. He's going to be hoeing his way through the Amazons and the Atlanteans and the kings of men all fighting to save their world. The Lord of the Rings parallels are definitely there, even visually, the grandiose scale of everything. That's what Snyder does best. I mean, his visuals are off the charts. I mean, already, just the way Darkseid looks, you can see, what is it, the Grace Randolph pointed this out, you can see the Omega symbol on his chest, and just those muscles and everything, and those eyes, those glowing pupils, against that sort of like his jet black skin, such a beautiful contrast. The CG for Darkseid, and I know this is probably a reasonably early rendering of him, well, not a rendering of him, this is probably, there's still a lot of work to do. We don't know when the Snyder Cut is actually going to come out. It's going to come out probably in a little less than a year, or maybe a year. So they've got plenty of time to get the CG right. Darkseid, he doesn't look bad, but he does still kind of look... You can tell he's an animated character, like a CG character. So, I mean, the motion capture by Ray Porter, look at the movement here. Look at that. Wham! Down he comes. And that we saw that in the theatrical cut, but that was a very quick shot where they basically took away Darkseid and put Steppenwolf there. Don't know why. Clearly they wanted Darkseid out of the movie for some reason. I don't know why they would have done that. Maybe they wanted to save him up for future movies. Maybe they thought it was too dark. That was one of the main things that, Jeff Johns and Joss Whedon were trying to eliminate, the darker elements. But again, that's what made the DCEU, at least to me, so appealing, because it wasn't like Marvel. It was going down a more mythological route, It was going down a more... It was being a bit more like... You know what, never mind. So yeah, I'm definitely looking forward to seeing Ray Porter as Darkseid. This is a younger version of Darkseid, and I hear that he's going to be probably have a lot more armor and everything later on. Ultimately, it's very exciting to see him like this, and I'm looking forward to that big battle. Okay, so this is great. This is let's go back. Oh, so cool. And so this is obviously a flashback to Batman v Superman, when Superman died at the hands of Doomsday. And this shot, I believe this is going to be at the beginning of the film, because we saw at the beginning of Batman v Superman, they sort of they had a sort of flashback to Man of Steel, the end of Man of Steel, but from Bruce Wayne's perspective. This is probably going to be the end of Batman v Superman, the death of Superman, but from maybe Lois's perspective, who knows? And Snyder revealed in his BVS commentary that when Superman screams, his final scream woke up the mother boxes, which is a really nifty addition. That's a really nice detail. It really fleshes out the world and gives it a nice, it makes the world feel lived in, like there's a lot more than meets the eye beyond the screen. Or there's a lot more to the mythology. Ultimately, this shot is... I mean, we saw, an unrendered version of it as a tease, but this looks... I mean, I don't know how to describe it. Again, it looks like... And Grace Randolph, again, brought this up. It's the death of a god, basically. And the way it's not just, and a lot of people don't like this. I personally find it interesting, again. Superman sort of got his arms spread out in the kind of like the crucifixion position. But it does look like a painting. It really does. Like, and that's the sort of thing with Snyder's movies, is that he takes the idea of show don't tell, because of course film is a visual medium, and one of the things that I've been learning in media studies is show don't tell. Show don't tell. Don't say everything through dialogue. You got to show it. Snyder takes that very literally, and again, even if that doesn't necessarily work, it makes for very bold and unique. It makes for a very bold filmmaking style and a very unique viewing, and that's what ultimately draws me to his work, because this does remind me of like some sort of gothic painting, some gothic artwork. I just can't get enough of it. Anyhow, the death of Superman, but he's not entirely gone. Not entirely gone. Just a part of his arc. And I feel like I should. I feel like I should also bring this up. Listen to the lyrics here. So, I heard there. What was that? I heard there was a secret chord that David played, and I pleased the Lord. So this is almost. That is the great thing about putting Hallelujah as the backing track to this trailer, because as we know, I heard there was a secret chord, which could be seen as Superman's final scream that woke up the mother boxes, that David played. David being Superman, and it pleased the Lord being Darkseid. Brings Steppenwolf and the Parademons back to try and reclaim the Earth. Zack Snyder loves doing that kind of thing. He is the king of Easter eggs. He loves to layer those kinds of, elements throughout his films. And again, maybe that's style over substance. Again, that's just, for me, the most fascinating thing about it, is getting to dig into those little elements. We saw a storyboard for this. We saw a storyboard for that shot. Of course, we see the Hall of Justice here, Justice League, and there's little tidbits that some people pointed out on Twitter that I noticed. I believe, I don't know if you can see my mouse here, but in the sort of centre-ish left of the frame, you can see a picture lying in the rubble. I believe that is a painting of Thomas Wayne. You can see Aquaman's trident, and just below the League, just below the word League there, on the cracked sign, I believe that might be Wonder Woman's logo. So, I think personally, this is just going to be a dream sequence, but again, the nightmare sequence was a very intriguing moment in BVS, so I'm looking forward to this one. So there we are, rising up. Again, Zack Snyder, I'm probably going to put it in, but Zack Snyder did show us a storyboard of this on Vero. There are the Parademons. Hopefully it's the original Parademon design that we saw in the BVS Nightmare sequence. I'm going to be honest. Again, just like with Darkseid, this looks like an early rendering of the sequence, because while the CG here is not awful, it certainly looks like, especially with the sign and everything, and also the movement of the Parademons, it looks a bit smooth, and it looks a bit, it looks like they haven't put the final touches in yet, and that's cool. Again, they've got like almost a year, or a little less than a year to complete this. Plenty of time. Zack Snyder is a visualist, more than anything, Zack Snyder is a visualist, so I believe that this is going to look amazing at the end of the day. All of his films pretty much have. Aside from those two shots, that one of Darkseid and this one of the Nightmare, the majority of it looks pretty amazing, so let's get on to that. But again, looking forward to hopefully some more Nightmare scenes. There was that picture Clay Enos posted. Clay Enos actually answered one of my questions on Vero for his Q&A, which was really cool. But Clay Enos posted a picture of Gal Gadot wearing a mask, and it looked suspiciously, some of the extras in the background looked suspiciously like those fascist Superman supporters in the Nightmare scene, so that's a little interesting. Warner Max. DC. Alrighty, so here we have Diana entering what looks like the Greek temple, and we saw this in the we didn't see this in the theatrical cut, but we saw Queen, what's her name? What was her name? Queen Hippolyta. We saw in the theatrical cut Queen Hippolyta firing the arrow, and I believe the arrow was like it was named sort of like a Greek. It was sort of like a Greek name, a really obscure Greek name, which was a translation, or maybe it was Latin, that translated to Diana, which is just a nice little detail. We saw her firing the arrow, but it appears as though Diana is actually going to investigate it now, which is interesting. We never saw that in the theatrical cut, presumably cut down due to time. I love the colour. It looks, again, the composition and the new aspect ratio, it makes it look very unique. But when you look at the colours and everything, and the way it's kind of got that interesting sort of dusty, monochromatic look, it does give it that feeling of an ancient, painterly, kind of like a Greek tapestry in a way. Does that make sense? That's kind of what it feels like to me. And this, we saw this again. Oh, that's such a cool shot. I love that shot of Ben Affleck. Let's see it again. Okay, so that is what looks like to be a hologram of Superman. Well, we know it's been confirmed by Snyder, but that's Bruce Wayne looking at a hologram of Superman. And this was shown in the trailer, interestingly, but it had much more saturated colour, like the background was a lot more blue. Again, this is clearly going to emphasise, when you look at, I love that shot of Ben Affleck there as Bruce Wayne. He looks very, very haunted there. And I guess that is because he tried to kill Superman in Batman v Superman. That was all part of his arc, trying to, his irrational hatred. He was going to kill him in cold blood. And then ultimately, when he watched Superman sacrifice himself, that completely changed his field view, his whole world view, basically. And he obviously still feels guilty for wanting to kill Superman. And that apparently, again, this isn't confirmed, I don't exactly know. We'll see next year, but I hear that towards the end of the film, Bruce basically becomes so convinced, he feels so guilty about not just trying to kill Superman, but I also imagine killing all of those thugs in Batman v Superman, who, if he'd left them alive, they could have redeemed themselves. If he'd just left the police to, if he just left them to be taken in by the police, those men could have redeemed themselves. So not only did he kill those men, he tried to kill Superman, and he obviously feels a lot of guilt over that. And I hear at the end, during the finale, when he drives into Steppenwolf, sort of like the area where Steppenwolf is about to do the Unity, about to go through with the Unity, he's going to sacrifice himself in order to redeem himself, but ultimately the rest of the League dissuades him. So, in many ways, I think the shot definitely ties into that guilt that he's feeling of wanting to try and kill Superman. And again, Ben Affleck, I'm so glad that he's coming back, because the guy, he put everything into that performance in Batman v Superman, and just seeing the way he was in the theatrical cut of Justice League was really, really unfortunate, because you could tell he just wasn't as passionate about it anymore. He'd been going through a lot personally. We've got a few hints here and there that he wasn't happy with the direction Jeff Johns and Joss Whedon was taking his character in. And, ultimately it wasn't as compelling as what we got in BVS. So I'm really hoping to see a continuation of that version of Batman. So, love that shot. Really love the expression on his face. The sort of the crossed arms, looking very thoughtful. That's our Bruce Wayne. The king indeed. The king under the sea. This is Arthur Curry, and this looks like he's exiting the bar. He's exiting the bar after rescuing that fisherman. And we've got some more classic Zack Snyder slow motion. Classic Snyder slow motion, and look at that. That's a great shot. The Wanderer indeed. Taking off his shirt. Look at those tats. And again, we did see a little bit of this in the theatrical cut, but we didn't see any of this stuff. So this is him. Zack Snyder really likes his particles, doesn't he? He loves having, something happening in slow motion with an out-of-focus background, and then he has either snow or rain or cinders going through, and that's That's how he adds a lot of depth to his shots. I wonder where they shot this. Did they shoot this in Iceland? Because I know they filmed some certain scenes with Aquaman, with Jason Momoa in Iceland, but they did this, like, on a back lot, and clearly the ocean here is CGI. You wouldn't be able to tell, because they were spraying, like, water using pipes or something, and Jason Momoa was basically striding along on some kind of platform they'd built. Again, we saw that sign, so clearly that moment of him striding into the waves in the theatrical cut was a Snyder cut, but that was a shot from Snyder, but they've obviously cut it down due to time. I thought he had his shirt off initially. Clearly not. Okay, I've got a lot to say about this. So this is obviously Victor Stone in his final football match, in which I hear, well, we know, he basically scores, you know, the big touchdown, or what looks like to be the final touchdown, obviously, and we're about to see his mother, Eleanor Stone. She was cut from the theatrical cut. But essentially, this reminds me very much of 300. You know that iconic shot from 300 where King Leonidas is sort of wading through the battlefield, and it goes into slow motion, and then it, like, zooms in, and it goes into fast motion, then it goes into slow motion, zooms out, fast, slow, zooms in. I feel like this could be Snyder trying to homage 300 here, because instead of Leonidas striding through the battlefield, you know, killing all the Persians and stuff like that, this is very much like, you know, Victor is Leonidas here. You know, going through the battlefield, fighting his fight, getting there at the end. It reminds me very much of it, and I haven't seen anybody pointing that out, so I don't know. Let me know what you guys think. And there's obviously Eleanor Stone. It is very interesting how all of the characters of colour, all of the black American characters, all of the Asian characters, it is very interesting how they all got cut out. Just saying, don't want to sound like, you know, one of those sort of, you know, it's just a little interesting, you know. But luckily, we're going to get to see them. We're going to, and again, it's very clear, and we'll talk about this later, but it's clear that Cyborg was very much cut down when it comes to the, and you know, his relationship with his parents, because we got, in the theatrical cut, all we really got was a couple of shots of photographs on, you know, the windowsill of, you know, Victor's home, but we really got nothing else other than some exposition. We didn't get to see anything. It was basically just a couple of conversations between Victor and, you know, Silas, sorry, not Cyrus. It was basically just, it boiled down to a few conversations between Victor and Silas Stone, and that was kind of it. So, clearly we're going to get to see much more of Cyborg, and it will be really, I'm sure it will be really empowering for a lot of people. One thing is for sure, if nothing else, the Snyder cut is going to be way more diverse than the theatrical cut, and hopefully way less sexist too, but we'll see. Okay, Black Suit Superman. This is a shot that we actually did see in the, what's it called? We saw the shot in the deleted scenes of the Blu-ray, but obviously it had the blue suit and everything. But, oh man, it's just, I hear that there's going to be, I'm going to cry when we see that second flight, because I hear that Superman was going to have a second flight scene in this movie that would parallel his moment in Man of Steel. You know, Jor-El saying, you know, you will give the people of Earth something to strive for. They will stumble, they will fall, but in time they will join you in the sun. And this, if they could have that again, but with him in the black suit, showing, you know, obviously a visual change in his character, but obviously representing an emotional change. The fact that he's accepted his position, you know, he accepted his position as Superman in Man of Steel, but then obviously, you know, he gave the people of Earth something to strive towards, or something to strive against. They stumbled, they fell, they fought over it, they protested against him in Batman v Superman, but ultimately at the end of the day he was able to put that all aside, sacrifice himself for the greater good, sacrifice himself to kill Doomsday, And now here he is, resurrected, willing to become the symbol of hope that humanity needs him to be, even if they don't entirely deserve it. That's ultimately the essence of Superman in my eyes, and all due respect to the people that did not like this interpretation of the character. That's totally cool, but for me, that is exactly what a superhero, or at least any hero, should represent when it comes to hope, you know? Tripping over, failing, picking themselves back up, failing again, making a sacrifice or two, and then ultimately saying, you know what, I'm alright at the end of the day. I'm gonna cry when Superman does his second flight. When he flies up and he stares at Earth, you know, bathing in the light of the sun. It's gonna be... I'm sure it will be beautiful. But, you know. This made me smile. This really made me smile. That is great. That is so beautiful. So this is Wonder Woman, the wonderful Gal Gadot. And this, it appears to be her talking to those kids that she saves at the very beginning of the Justice League theatrical cut. We don't know when it's going to be set in terms of the timeline of the Snyder cut. But it's become clear that she has definitely, one way or another, stopped those terrorists. So we're going to blow up the building that they were in, blow up either the bank or the museum or something along those lines. It looked like it could have been either. And this is, I mean, this is female empowerment. Wonder Woman is an inspiration, and again, I think it does go to show that at the end of the day, this is going to be ultimately bringing these characters to their true selves, you know. This is going to be the culmination of the hero's journey, and this, ultimately, Man of Steel was bringing Superman into a real kind of, like, gritty, very cynical world. Batman v Superman was going to be the darkest of, you know... Who knows if Snyder's ever going to get to do his Justice League 2 and Justice League 3, but when it comes to the trilogy, Man of Steel, Batman v Superman, and Justice League, BVS was going to be the darkest, and then Justice League would be the one where Superman ultimately inspires these guys to come out to protect the world and to inspire the people they're going to protect. And, you know, just seeing this moment of Wonder Woman talking to these girls, I mean, obviously, Wonder Woman is a feminist icon, so this is going to mean a lot to people. Hand on my heart, it's great. And again, I heard a rumor that, and this was a rumor that came up quite a while ago, that Wonder Woman was actually going to fail to save these people. She was going the bomb. She was going to disable the first bomb, but there was a second bomb, and she would fail to stop it, and the bomb would blow up, killing all of these people, including the children, and she would be standing there, kind of like Superman in Batman v Superman, you know, in the US Capitol building, basically standing in the flames of the people he failed to save, and a similar thing would have happened here, and I'm glad that that's not true, because ultimately, you know, that was what you know, Wonder Woman decides to come out, and she decides to be the inspiration, even after walking away from mankind for a century, even though she kind of doesn't, because Wonder Woman 84, but I guess that's part of a different continuity now, because DC Multiverse and everything, but, I mean, this is wonderful. I do feel like the colour could be brightened up a little bit here, and I shouldn't be saying that, because we saw what happened when they tried to brighten up and saturate the colours in the theatrical cut. That didn't turn out all that well, but all the same, a moment of hope like this probably needs a bit more vibrance to it, but that's just me for that moment. Again, I respect Snyder's style. I respect that he stays consistent to what he feels it you know, represents him best. So, I won't question it. Alrighty. This is pretty famous. This was leaked, I think, not long after the theatrical cut came out. This is obviously Barry Allen, probably in a shop by the looks of it, but he's going to save Iris West. And again, we'll talk about this in a moment, but I'm so ready to see a genuinely heroic version of the Flash. A Flash who we can take seriously, who's not cracking stupid jokes all the time, who's not just being a really cringy, embarrassing kid, you know? Like, I want a Flash who's genuinely heroic, who actually does something, doesn't just stroll around, running about the Batcave like a little kid, cracking a few one-liners, and ultimately really doing nothing. And we'll see that later in the trailer. He definitely does do something, but anyhow. That's an awesome shot. The blur effect. That's him saving Iris West. And Chris Wong Swenson pointed out something, like there was, like it's a hot dog truck or something. He's crashing into a hot dog truck, and literally they saw some debris come out that was suspiciously shaped like frankfurters. You can see, I don't know if you can see my mouse, but you can see an umbrella flying about in the background. So clearly, who was out of control here? Was it Iris West, or was it the person driving the hot dog van? Either way. That's cool. We saw a sort of ungraded, unfinished version of that shot, in which the... Yeah, there it is! You can see some of the debris looks like sausages. I wonder if that was originally going to be in there, but then Zack Snyder came across Chris Wong Swenson on Vera and decided to add that in there as an Easter egg. That would be pretty cool. Again, the dedication to his fans is really admirable. And that explosion looks way more integrated into the surroundings now. Love at first sight. Kiersey Clemons, she's finally going to get her long-awaited role in here. Again, it's just the reason why this needed to come out, in my opinion. You know, there was a lot of reasons why I wanted this to be released, but ultimately, all of these actors that, you know, did, you know, and true, they got paid and everything, but ultimately, they went there with the impression of knowing that their work was going to get to be seen, and they would go to the conventions, they would talk to people, they would get to see this. They were sold by Warner Brothers and by the filmmakers this version of the movie, and ultimately they were screwed over at the end of the day. And I'm just glad that these guys are going to get to see their story told. Okay, now we've seen this shot on Vero, and it looks different. I'm going to put the version that Zack Snyder posted. Clearly it was unfinished, or again, it was just an early sort of rendering of the shot, which they hadn't added elements in there. This is Victor Stone, Cyborg, at, I believe, his mother's grave. And this is him... It looks like he's punching the ground in frustration. A lot of people have speculated as to whether he's digging or something. He's trying to dig her out. I don't think he is. I think this is after... I personally think, spoilers, this is after his father has died, and he's come to his mother's grave, you know, broken, devastated, and he's punching the grave. Also, I think this is also his own grave. Maybe it's his father's grave. Maybe his father, the remains of his father, if there are any, have been buried too. And he's just coming here feeling like he has no humanity left. That is ultimately, I feel, it's going to be his character arc. You know, as Snyder said, he was going to be the heart of the movie. And this is going to be him realizing that his last connection with humanity has been destroyed, and he feels alone. And the Justice League is probably going to be his way out of that, giving him purpose, making him feel like he can do something. So, I can't wait to see this, honestly. That's an amazing shot of Batman. That is a shot that I know that Fabian Wagner, the original director of photography of the movie, I know that he was very proud of that shot. And it never made it into the theatrical cut of the movie. It was replaced by this weird shot of a flappy piece of sheet with Batman kind of out of focus in the background. Why would Whedon choose that? Was this shot perceived as being... by Jeff Johns, because I know that Jeff Johns was kind of instrumental in what kind of happened. Was it perceived as being too dark? Were they trying to make Batman more bright? Did they think this was too ominous? Because obviously you've got the gargoyle there, and I don't know if that's the Wayne logo on there. It would be pretty ironic if it was the Wayne logo, with, you know, because obviously none of Gotham knows that it's Bruce Wayne aside from like Alfred, really, and the Justice League evidently soon. But that is an iconic shot, and it was used multiple times in the trailers, and I don't know why they would remove it. Little interesting. I know that they would cut out certain shots for time, but why would you'd think you would have at least kept this one in and not have that weirdly abstract shot of a flappy sheet. And I'm pretty sure that was a Snyder shot, that one of the sheet. But if you were to choose between that one or this one, you'd think you would choose this one. I don't know, that's just my personal preference.
I couldn't feel.
This makes my heart swell. Seeing more of Lois and Martha. Because these guys gave, you know, these are the guys that kept, well, the girls, the gals, the women, these are the women that kept Clark Kent grounded, ultimately, you know. Martha, obviously the lovely Diane Lane, is the one who obviously raised him, even though he's technically not her birth child. And then there's Lois, who is obviously, you know, Clark says this, you know, she was my world. She is the one that ultimately encourages Superman to keep on going, keeps him grounded, which was going to come into play later when it came to, you know, Superman taking over the Earth and, you know, being that sort of dictator that we saw in the Nightmare sequence, which, again, it would have been a very interesting thing to play on, you know, the whole thing about free will and the Codex and all that kind of thing. You know, it's fascinating stuff to dig into. But it's going to be, I mean, it's going to be really lovely seeing these two interact and not joke about sex. You know, that they were seriously done dirty with that thirsty line. You know, you can say what you want about the theatrical cut, but I'm not crazy over the way that a lot of the women in that movie were portrayed. And it's not just with Martha and, you know, Lois here. I'm so glad that they're going to get to see this scene. They're probably going to talk about, you know, how Clark's death has affected them and everything. But just to see... And I hear there was also going to be a scene where Diana would come to support Lois, which would probably be quite similar to this. But just to see them there supporting one another is really, really beautiful. And you know, it's not just Lois and Martha that drew the short straw. Wonder Woman is an obvious one. There's the scene where the Flash falls into her cleavage, which apparently was done with a body double. Which apparently was done with a body double because Gal Gadot didn't want to do it, which is a bit creepy. But there's also that moment, even just that little moment on the television, where you have that woman who's, you know, ranting about how, you know, aliens stole her man, and it's just done in such a weirdly misogynistic way. The fact, you know, the woman... First off, they're making light over the fact that the woman is clearly in a lot of grief and a lot of stress over the fact that her husband has been kidnapped. But she calls her husband a provider, as if, you know... She calls her husband a provider as if that's the sole reason why she loves him. You know, I don't have a job, I can't do anything. He's the one who, you know, pays the bills and everything. He's the one who works, you know, supports me and everything. You know, that's... I don't know. It rubs me the wrong way. There is a certain level of undermining of the female characters in the theatrical cut, and I really hope that that is not in the Snyder cut. We'll see, though.
I've told the truth.
Okay, so this is obviously Arthur Curry throwing down, you know, his father's... This is obviously Arthur Curry throwing down his trident and his armor and rejecting, you know, obviously his birthplace. And we saw that with the first Aquaman movie, with the initial Aquaman movie in 2018. You know, he's obviously got a very complicated relationship with Atlantis, believing that his mother was killed, that kind of thing. And, I mean, we saw a scene similar to this in the Snyder version, and it was very interesting, Snyder talking about it on social media, that he imagined that underwater, the Atlanteans would sort of talk kind of like whales communicate with one another, or undersea sea creatures. They would communicate through like sonic frequencies, like whistles and clicks, which would be that would have been very weird to see, very interesting to see. Although it would have definitely conflicted with the continuity in regards with what James Wan did in the Aquaman movie. Which, again, is one of the reasons why the DC multiverse, for me, is going to work way more than the DC EU, the DC Extended Universe, because ultimately when you've got, and that's the beauty of DC, all of these different directors, all of these unique filmmakers get to put in their own voice, their own, you know, style and trademarks, but ultimately, if you're trying to do that in a cinematic universe, it's going to create a lot of continuity clashes, and it will throw a lot of people off. Which is why I feel that, first off, the DC multiverse, this is the right way to go. And it's also one of the reasons why Marvel hasn't appealed to me. Because Marvel, the directors, as talented as they are, all are sort of stifled by these sort of corporate mandates and everything. By these sort of, like, constrictions that it requires to make a cinematic universe. Like, you have to make each movie look the same, sound the same. Sure, it has a different story and different themes and maybe sort of a different personality, but at the end of the day, they still do feel quite cookie cutter. This doesn't, and that's ultimately what draws me to it. But again, Jason Momoa going into the background, it's so badass. I'm out of here. And this is Amber Heard. I won't talk about her all that much because we know what's been going on between her and Johnny Depp. And I would also like to say, I apologise to Johnny Depp. In my Fantastic Beasts review, I sort of criticised him a bit, and I criticised the fact that they kept him in because of the allegations towards him. It's now becoming very clear that maybe those allegations weren't true, and it was Amber Heard who was the real abuser here. So, we'll see how that goes, but I would like to, if Johnny Depp is innocent, I would like to apologise on his behalf, and Amber Heard, yeah, that's all I'll say about this, but I'm looking forward to seeing Willem Dafoe. It will be interesting to see what his role is in there. And the underwater scenes that we saw, the underwater effects and everything, looked cool. Like, the water looks beautiful. This is a very famous shot. Very famous. This was the first look that we got at Darkseid, I'm pretty sure. This was our first tease of him that... Well, not the first tease, but the first actual proof we had of him that Snyder revealed as to him being in the actual cut. And it was obviously in black and white. Here it is in colour. Oh, man. And this was also in the theatrical cut, with a much more sort of orangey colour palette, much less painterly, and because it's interesting, the use of sort of like the contrast between light and dark gives it a very kind of painterly tapestry kind of vibe. Again, very much like Lord of the Rings. This reminds me so much of that battle in the opening of Fellowship of the Ring. There's going to be, I feel like, there is definitely going to be a parallel between the Fellowship of the Ring and Zack Snyder's Justice League. And just the pose, the way he's holding that staff out behind him. Oh, this is Peter Guinness as Desard, Darkseid's master torturer, I hear. It's interesting. When you look at the CG for his face, he kind of reminds me of the theatrical version of Steppenwolf. Just way more intimidating with that those engravings on his armor and that kind of like hood of weird kind of obsidian sort of graphite chainmail. I don't know how to describe it. And it's interesting, looking at where he is right now, this almost reminds me of the opening of Man of Steel. you know, the opening on Krypton with the world exploding in the background, and what's her name, Lara, staring out as the world blows up around her, standing in that cave. It reminds me very much of that. But honestly, again, all these actors that had their roles cut, I'm so happy for them, because, you know, all the motion capture and everything, they would have done a lot of work on this. Who knows if this is fairly recent stuff. This CG could have been completed in that original 214 cut, but who knows. And this is this is going to be such a devastating scene. This moment here, the music and the visuals just it gets to me. It really gets to me. This shot of Cyborg crying, and the lyrics saying, "And even though when all went wrong," and it just, the lyrics, and this is why I think it was great to use Hallelujah. I'll talk about the song choice now. I thought it was a really cool decision to use Hallelujah as the backing track to this, because first off, the most obvious thing is, this is a trailer that's clearly been made for the fans, because all of the shots that Snyder has used here, he has either teased online, he's posted in screenshots, he's done a few quotes, he left a few quotes in the comments, a few reveals in the comments, he posted a few storyboards online. Pretty much all of the reveals in this trailer have been teased to the fans. For a lot of people, this trailer might be a bit like, and you'll see in a moment, you'll see that Silas Stone, you'll see his death, and for a lot of people it's like, well, why did you spoil that? Well, it's like, it had already been technically spoiled, because Snyder, he knew that his cut probably wouldn't see the light of day, so he ultimately ended up posting a screenshot of Silas's death. And, you know, this trailer has been made ultimately for the fans. All of the teasers that the fans, you know, clamoured over on Vero, on social media, are pretty much all in this trailer brought to life, which means that really, for us, nothing new has been given away. This is all stuff that we knew about, so there's plenty of more surprises to come. But in regards to the song choice, Hallelujah, sorry, I keep on pronouncing it Hallelujah for some reason. Hallelujah. Obviously, it's a celebration. It's jubilation. It's both Zack Snyder, his cast, his crew, his family, and his fans. Hallelujah. Hallelujah. This is coming out. We succeeded. But then also, I feel it also represents the film itself. The fact that Snyder was trying to go for a mythological, epic kind of vibe in which the world is in a state of hopelessness, it needs its heroes, it needs its, you know, its gods, it needs those figures that we idolize and we believe in. Hallelujah, the Justice League is here to save the world. There's that. But also, I'm going to play this for a moment. I'm going to play this next moment. Listen to the lyrics and pay attention to the pictures, the footage that comes up on screen. Brilliant. I love, even though it all went wrong, this is clearly Victor in tears over his father's death. That's going to be such a wrenching scene, especially considering Cyborg. Ray Fisher clearly put a lot of work into this. He clearly put a lot of passion into this. He deserves this. I mean, a lot of the cast and crew deserves this, but of all the cast members and of all the crew members, Ray Fisher, he drew the short straw. He really got the axe when it comes to those characters that were featured in the theatrical cut. I feel like this is especially for him. And I hear that Snyder doesn't want him to see the cut until it's completed, which I think is the best, considering that he is meant to be kind of the movie's soul. I think that that's a very good decision. And I'm so happy for Ray Fisher. And I'm so happy that whatever went on behind the scenes of the theatrical cut, justice is finally being served. It's very ironic that the film is called Justice League, because it sounds like there was some really toxic behaviour going on behind the scenes of the theatrical cut. So whatever is going on, the fact that Warner Brothers is now looking into it and investigating, it truly is justice for all. So, but you can, even though it all went wrong, I'll stand before the Lord of Song. And of course, the Lord is Superman, resurrected. And again, this is a different shot to what we got in the theatrical cut. I couldn't believe this. When you look at the shot of Superman flying in the theatrical cut, he's wobbling, his body is moving in a very jittery way, like he does this weird, posture change thing. The buildings are different. It's like, why would you change the buildings? Why would you change Superman's posture? Couldn't you just reuse that for the theatrical cut? It makes no sense to me. Using this would be a much more cost-effective decision. And also, we obviously saw that shot of Lois turning around in the street of Metropolis, looking up, and we were all wondering, what is she looking at? Well, it was kind of obvious what she was looking at. She was clearly looking at Superman, but was she looking at Superman flying upwards towards the heavens in the end? When he does that kind of like logo reveal, that the Superman logo reveal, pulling apart his shirt and flying up, does she look up at that very end as one of the final shots? Or was it Superman's resurrection? Clearly it was his resurrection. And so she's gonna... Honestly, it's gonna be great seeing her, instead of getting driven by Alfred in a taxi or something, through two cops, or one cop car, and Superman and the Justice League not noticing this car driving across the park towards them. Like, the theatrical cut. I hate the theatrical cut. I've got to be honest, I really hate it. I really do. But it's going to be so nice seeing Lois, making her way through this battle and appealing to Clark's better nature and bringing him down to earth. Again, without Lois, Clark isn't grounded. Lois and, I suppose, Martha and Jonathan and Jor-El, they are the ones that keep... And, I mean, maybe not so much Jor-El, but especially, Jonathan and Martha and Lois, they are the ones that keep him grounded. So, and I hear Kevin Costner might have a little cameo in this one. Snyder has teased that on Vero, so who knows, maybe not, but it would be cool. And this is probably Silas Stone experimenting in Star Labs. We saw none of this in the theatrical cut. With a mother box, it looks like. Oh my man, that is gonna... That's such a devastating shot. That is such a nifty effect on the mother box, that kind of rippling supercomputer sort of thing. I wonder what they're doing there. What sort of experiments are they doing on it? Again, this is the thing that I'm really excited to see about in the Snyder Cut. The fact that we're getting 4 hours of this thing, like, I genuinely don't see how the Snyder Cut... I know I'm a Zack Snyder fan. I like his work, even if it's flawed, but I genuinely don't see how it can be worse than the theatrical cut. Because the theatrical cut was it was under 2 hours long. There were quite a few plot holes. The characters were underdeveloped. And a lot of it was sacrificed in the name of making a movie that was fun, a movie that could be digestible, and a movie that was ultimately, as we have seen, very forgettable for some, and very, in my opinion, a very embarrassing film, a very unfinished and clearly corporately micromanaged film. But all of this, the fact that we're getting a 4 hour long cut, means that not only are we going to get to more time to know these characters, to understand these characters, it'll probably... there'll be more time for character arcs, there'll be more time to explain away plot holes or plot contrivances. I genuinely, just on an objective level, the fact that we're getting 2 hours of this, I mean, there's the better visuals, there's the fact that it's going to be more consistent with the previous movies, there's the fact that it's probably going to be, the bringing together of the League, and the fact that it's going to, bring the characters to their true comic book forms, or at least that's what the filmmakers say. I genuinely, on an objective level, I don't see how this can be worse than the theatrical cut. You can only go up from here, in my eyes. And this is the wonderful Joe Morton, who played, interestingly, I find it really funny that he played Miles Dyson in Terminator 2, Terminator 2 being one of my absolute favourite movies, which is a film where he basically creates Skynet, an artificial intelligence that destroys the world, and here he is, working with supercomputers, mother boxes, that turn his son into a cyborg, a living machine. So it's very... It's so interesting, it's so ironic, but this is clearly him staring at his son one last time, and I don't know what he's doing here, but he's clearly sacrificing himself to do something. I don't know what it is, but you can see Steppenwolf, and we'll get onto Steppenwolf in a moment. You can see Steppenwolf behind him, behind Victor there. So he's clearly sacrificing himself. Maybe he's trying to destroy the mother box or something? Maybe? I don't know what's going on here. I'm really fascinated, but again, this is the moment which will probably be integral to Cyborg's character arc. You know, he's got... Oh man, that's so devastating. And this again was another shot that Snyder teased. Oh man, just reaching out and he can't do anything. It's going to be so devastating watching that. I really hope that we get to flesh out the relationship between Silas and Victor way more, so this has a much more heartfelt... Because it was nice that Silas survived, but, you know, the fact that Cyborg has to grapple with the fact that he doesn't feel human anymore, he doesn't feel like he has a purpose now, he can't do what he's good at, you know, he was a baseball... Not baseball... Not even football. You know, he was a player of sport, and now he can't do that. You know, he's somewhat of an outcast. He lost his mother, and now his father has died too. It's like he's experienced so many horrible things, but at the end of the day, he'll get through it. And oh man. It gets me emotional thinking about it, and I'm trying not to hype myself up too much. I know... Okay, Silas has a remote in his hand, so he is clearly doing this. I thought that Steppenwolf killed him. I had a theory that maybe Steppenwolf killed him, but clearly that's not the case. Clearly it was more of a sacrifice. And that is very much like what happened to Dr. Manhattan in Watchmen. Again, another homage to one of Snyder's other films. Oh, I love it. I love digging into these little Easter eggs that Snyder puts in. That's what draws me to his work so much. And again, the composition of the shot, the visuals, on point. And again, the colour grading here looks... Okay, so first things first. Grace Randolph pointed this out, and I think it is fair that I point this out too. This looks... The colour looks so much better than what it looked like in the theatrical cut. The theatrical cut, they'd clearly tried to brighten it and dial down the contrast. But the colour, like the flesh tones of the Amazons and their armour didn't match with the kind of mood... And that was the problem with dialing up the saturation and dialing down the contrast, because Snyder, he's very specific and very... Excuse me. Snyder is very specific and very particular with his visuals. So he'd lit his shots in a certain way to look good under a certain colour grade, and then ultimately, when you brighten and saturate those shots, it's not going to look right, because it hasn't been lit in the appropriate way. And ultimately, when you compare the shots of the Amazons here in comparison to what it was like before, this actually looks like a movie. It doesn't look like a cheap video game. It doesn't look like a cheap television show. It actually looks like a film. So that's one improvement. I think that the darker colour grading, and I know that a lot of people aren't not a lot of people, but there are people who aren't a fan of Snyder's sort of more desaturated, shadowy aesthetic. I, for one, think it's one of his trademarks. I think his visual style is one of the best parts of his movies. It's one of the many things that draws me to his work. But here we have our new Steppenwolf. That spiky mofo. And Snyder did post a low-resolution photo of this literal shot. This very shot, he posted a low-resolution photo of it, but here it is in high definition. And he's a monster. He's a beast. And if you take a look at his armor, the spikes sort of like come out. They like protrude out of his body, like rippling and everything. That was the way Jeremy Jahns described it. That is very menacing. That is so much better than the version in the theatrical cut, which was going to be in the Snyder cut, unfortunately. Ultimately, I think that Snyder and his team were going to go for this design, but because Warner Brothers were nervous about the sort of the dark aspects of the movie, they dialed this down to make Steppenwolf a lot less intimidating. And maybe, I don't know, maybe in the Snyder cut it would have worked, but I'm glad that they're going back to this version, because, man, he looks like a formidable foe. And it's funny, Snyder, he said in a comment, like, somebody said, wow, Steppenwolf looks like a spiky effer. Again, I try not to swear on this channel, but, and then Snyder responded on Vero with, don't hug him, and like, no, you totally wouldn't want to punch this guy. You wouldn't want to get in an actual physical brawl with this guy. The League needs to be careful, because not only would you cut and mutilate yourself badly on those spikes when you're fighting him, if you got into a physical fight, you would almost expect a lot of those to be poisonous. Like, Steppenwolf is, after all, an alien from another planet, so you would almost expect them to be stings of some kind. Like, you know, kind of like, if you get spiked on one, it would infect you, or poison you, or something along those lines. So, honestly, if anybody's going to be punching Steppenwolf, it would have to be Superman. Because Superman, the only person who can actually physically hurt Clark Kent, is General Zod, being another Kryptonian, obviously, or Doomsday, being a sort of mutated Kryptonian. So, looking forward to seeing more of this. Because, you know, Steppenwolf, he comes into the theatrical cut looking like a PS2 cutscene villain. And you have that shot, this shot of him panning up, and it's just like, he does not look, they've made this shot, they've set the shot up to make him look intimidating and scary, and like a fearsome foe, but he doesn't look fearsome at all, he just looks goofy. This, on the other hand, this sells it for me. This is also a shot that we saw in one of the original trailers back in 2016, and I really liked the colour grading for that original trailer. It was more sort of like contrasty and more monochrome. This has a bit more gold to it, which is interesting, and you can also see around the base of the character's feet and everything, they've clearly added a lot more mist in the air, like weird clouds of vapour. Clearly they're trying to give it like a more... You can see a lot of condensation and dampness on the ground, so they're trying to, I guess, give it the feel of like a creepy, cold, moisture-filled cavern in a way, which I suppose would give it a lot more atmosphere. Wouldn't it be cool if you see parademons, like humans that have been captured? It would be very, very disturbing, but humans that have been captured and are turning into parademons. It would be interesting if this could be like a parademon nest where Steppenwolf and his army hides out, and you can see parademons hanging upside down, kind of like bats, on the ceiling of the nuclear plant. That would be interesting. But it's interesting to note that they've... I love this shot. It's much better than what we got in the theatrical cut, where it was just... I love the way that Jason Momoa, Aquaman, is gearing up there. Wonder Woman is the leader. And Cyborg looks like he's getting ready to engage his you know, proto-cannon or whatever it is. But it looks like Cyborg, they changed his face, because when they replaced his face or something like that, his head. Because in the original trailer, he was much more he had a much more angry expression on his face. But now here, he's looking down at his arm. So I wonder why they did that. Little interesting. Still, I like the shot. Yeah, it's good stuff. Okay, so this... Let's go back. Whoa, back a minute. So you can't really see what's happening here. Sorry about the terrible quality, guys. This is like what appears to be, and we saw again another screenshot of this. But this is clearly the Flash saving the civilians from falling debris, and at one point he is apparently supposed to manipulate the quantum physics of the area and travel through time, and he's in two places at once. And I think at one point there, again, this is why. Sorry, let me go back. And he's apparently supposed to like travel back through time, and sort of there's supposed to be more than one of him there. And this is again why I'm so excited to see this, because again, the Flash, he just did nothing in the theatrical cut, and here he's actually saving people. We're not going to have that scene of him going like, you know, I've just pushed some people and run away, you know, and then Batman goes, save one person, and he doesn't really do much of anything other than that. Here he's actually gonna do something here. Okay, so this is clearly in that Russian city where Steppenwolf and his cronies are hiding out. I wonder if that's the original... I wonder if those are the original Parademon designs. Oh, it looks like it could be. Looks like it could be, looking at that one, shoulder charging the Batmobile. Hope the Batmobile ends up surviving that. Don't know what it was like on the theatrical cut. Because I don't know how this differs from the theatrical cut, sorry, because in the Whedon version, they sort of jump on top of it, pull off the roof and everything, but we don't see them shoulder charging it like this. This shot was not in the theatrical cut. So it looks like we'll be getting that classic slow motion. This is cool. This is cool. This is in Steppenwolf's Hideout. Again, looking very, very interesting alien architecture. And here's our black suit Superman. And again, I told you, Superman is the only one who should punch Steppenwolf, because he's the only one with a thick enough skin, obviously because he's Kryptonian, to get through that armor without getting hurt. So, it's so cinematic and comic booky. Like, again, if you're gonna make a superhero movie, if you're gonna make a comic book movie like this, if you're gonna embrace the weird, wacky, comic book-esque aesthetics, you gotta deliver on the visuals, at least. I've never really been a big fan of big CGI spectacle, but this is... the composition, it's like a comic book panel come to life, and I love that. And here we've got Batman fighting parademons, blocking them literally just with his gauntlet. We need to see more of those Batfleck fight scenes, because say what you will about BVS, that warehouse fight scene, the action scenes that Batfleck was involved in, and I'm so glad that Ben Affleck has agreed to come back for, if anything, one more outing as a final goodbye, because he deserved a far better send-off than what he got in Justice League. So I'm really hoping we see another one of those warehouse-esque fight scenes, similar to what we got in Batman v Superman. Snyder has posted a picture of Batman dealing with a few thugs, so hopefully we'll get something like that. He can't kill anybody, though. Part of Batman's character arc was the fact that he descended into the depths of despair and anger and hatred, but Superman pulled him out of it. So, say what you will about killing parademons, but killing people, Batman can't do that in the Snyder Cut. I really hope Snyder restrains himself when it comes to that aspect. But I believe this is in the tunnel battle. This doesn't look like it's the big finale in the nuclear plant. This definitely looks like the underground scene. Or maybe it's in the parademon nest, because Snyder did say that there was a scene with parademons where he was going to see humans that were being transformed into parademons, but it was cut for being too scary. Who knows if they filmed it? It sounds like they might have filmed it, but we'll see. Maybe it's part of that additional photography. I don't know. I guess we'll see. But still. And again, remember, Batman's armor, we saw in Batman v Superman, Batman's armor is bulletproof, so it makes perfect sense that he'd be blocking these sorts of things literally with just his wrists. It must be pretty tough armor. Clearly Alfred's been doing his work. Clearly Alfred's been doing a great job. Oh god, I gotta break... how can you get a more high definition version of this? Clearly I might need to download it or something. Okay, so this... I reckon this is the Unity. I reckon the League initially fails because we see a shot in one of the trailers where Victor is trying to pull apart the mother boxes and he screams, Barry. This being Barry, obviously, the Flash. So I reckon what's going to happen is this is going to be the Unity happening. And our good friend Ezra Miller here is going to have to travel back through time to give them one more shot. Oh, this looks cool. Man. Again, I'm pretty sure this was a frame that we got from... This was a frame that Snyder did share with us, but now it's very clear that when people said that the Snyder Cut existed, they weren't referring to a totally complete cut. They were referring to a cut. There was a cut out there, there was footage out there in a rough state of completion. It's just that the visual effects needed more polishing. That was clearly what they were referring to. So clearly when people said, release the Snyder Cut, which, again, I supported this, when people said release the Snyder Cut, I mean, it made more sense to say release the Snyder Cut instead of complete the Snyder... Well, it's got more of a ring saying release the Snyder Cut rather than complete, finish, release the Snyder Cut, whatever, as a hashtag. Release the Snyder Cut has more of a ring to it, but it's clear that there was a reasonable amount of stuff that needed completing. But yeah, again, the Flash is going to hopefully do a lot more than what he did in the theatrical version. This is the farmhouse scene with Lois. This again just makes my heart swell. Superman embracing the two people that matter most in his life. Well, aside from obviously Jonathan and Jor-El, and also Lara to a degree. Lara. But yeah, just seeing this is these emotional moments. This is what's gonna make it for me. I'd like to know what is happening here, because it's obvious that Cyborg Victor here is controlling, you know, a bunch of nukes. Clearly the world's nuclear arsenal. But he's in his Gotham City football uniform, which clearly means he's not a machine yet. So how's he doing this? Doesn't he have to be a cyborg to do that? Doesn't he have to have, you know, mother box apocalyptian technology in him to do that? That'll be interesting. I don't know. It's fascinating. Here's more of that Lord of the Rings style battle. Let's go back. This is one of the Atlanteans, clearly, demonstrating their power. Again, this is where clearly the army was involved in that. Clearly the army was involved in the battle between Superman and the League. More of the Flash running through time. It looks like the ground... It looks like he's running through space here. Look at those stars. Again, the CG is beautiful and everything, but it looks like the ground... I'm not really a fan of Ezra Miller's run. He runs in a very weird, goofy way. But it looks like the ground is forming under his feet or something like that. I don't know. And this That's an amazing shot. That is gorgeous. Especially like the lighting, the color. Look at Superman's suit. Look at that black suit. Oh, that is beautiful. Come together indeed. Unity, Justice League. All in a day's work. All in a day's work. They've saved the world, and they're going back to the Batcave, their new hideout, their new operations center as a team. And that is ultimately, it makes way more sense than what it was in the theatrical cut, because remember in the theatrical cut, when they were staring out, and they didn't have this shot in the theatrical cut, they had this shot, like, from underneath, where, you know, Cyborg and Flash were doing this weird fist pump thing, which was cool and everything, but it looked very weird and ugly, and this, on the other hand, the lighting is better, but it makes more sense that they're staring out, because now they're not just staring out, admiring the view, you know, perfectly for their epic hero shot. Now, they're standing out, admiring, you know, all in a day's work as a team, waiting to go home. Waiting for, you know, Alfred to bring them home, effectively. By obviously, probably remote control or something from the Batcave. It makes more sense to me. Great. Justice League, the Snyder Cut. They need to sort that name out. They really do need to sort that name out, because we don't know what it is, whether it's Justice League, the Snyder Cut, or Zack Snyder's Justice League. Might want to clarify that, HBO Max, but it's just a title. I'm not complaining, we're getting this.
This guy's probably fought hundreds of thousands of other super beings on the other planets he's destroyed, right? And
okay, so again, this is the Flash. This is clearly one of their League meetings in the Batcave. I wonder when this is. This is either their meeting before they go off, or their meeting after they fought Steppenwolf for the first time. This is clearly either their meeting before they go off for the final battle to defeat Steppenwolf, or just after they've come back to the Batcave to meet Steppenwolf for the first time. Who knows? But again, here's the Flash not being a comedian. And when I say a comedian, not a very funny comedian at that, running around like a child going, wow, it's like a cave! Oh, good grief. It's so... I hate the theatrical cut. I really want to see a genuine hero. You know, someone genuinely... I want to see a genuine effort from... How long have I been doing this for? My voice is shredded.
the other planets he's destroyed, right? And we have to...
Okay, so this looks like the scene when they're about to discover the origin of the mother box, is when Cyborg sort of projects himself into the mother box. That's a scene. There are so many scenes that I'm just so fascinated in terms of world building, in terms of character, in terms of visually how they're going to execute it. It's so exciting to me.
I don't care how many demons he's fought and how many hells. He's never fought us. Not us united.
That is a Justice League leader there. He and Wonder Woman and Superman, the Trinity. I mean, they've all got their part to play, but ultimately, you know, the League was kind of picking on Batman in the theatrical cut quite a bit. They were throwing him under the bus quite a bit. Here, like, it would be nice to see Batman given way more respect. You know, the leader, the team leader, the one who's good with the gadgets and everything. You know, the one who plans out everything, I suppose. And obviously, that line was also something that Snyder teased on Vero. That is a line, and again...
He's won.
I don't care how many demons he's fought and how many hells.
He's never fought us before. Not us united. That could basically be the perfect way to summarize the way the fandom got this cut. Because ultimately, it was the fandom for better or worse, toxic and non-toxic sides of it, uniting to get this cut, all as one. The poetry of it is so... the poetry of it's so beautiful. Like, it couldn't... The fact that this is a movie called Justice League, in which justice is being served to those who were screwed over, to those who were, you know, abusing their power behind the scenes, to those who never got their work seen, to those who, you know, were treated badly in, you know, the middle of a family tragedy. To all of those people, you know, the fact that it's a movie about Justice League, well, justice is certainly being served, and, you know, it's a movie about unity, about collaboration, about working together, about family. And ultimately, the release of the Snyder Cut movement was a family. They unified, they fought for it, and they succeeded. The poetry of it, and I'm sorry if that sounds pretentious, but it's just so perfect, if you know what I mean. Thank you. Only on HBO Max 2021. Well, bring on 2021. So, alrighty guys, thank you so much for watching this. I know that was a very long dissection of the trailer. I'm going to try and edit this down so it's hopefully not too boring for you. I know that there are a lot of strong opinions about Zack Snyder's Justice League, so please don't be dicks about it in the comments section. Just be civil, no insults. Opinions are allowed, just, you know. I don't know what else to say, frankly. Thank you for watching this. Please like, comment, and subscribe. And I'll see you guys in another video, hopefully not too long in the future. Peace out. Go with happiness.